All right. Well, good morning, everybody. We have a sponsored song that I'm going to sing, a dedication by Tom Mosher. Mary and I had our first date on February 13th, 1959, Friday the 13th, at a Valentine's Day dance. When Mary was in the 9th grade and I was in the 11th grade, we literally lived almost across the street from each other for several prior years. We were together during high school and for 4 years at the Ohio State University. We married shortly after graduation on August 13th, 1966, and are still together. Even though Mary, in her fog of Alzheimer's, doesn't know who I am, but occasionally mentions Tom to me. Good morning. Let's sing. I've got peace like a river. That's what we're singing. All right. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. Well, I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. Nope, that was it.
Thank you. Great way to start. Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal, religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or, as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, work for justice, and live justly. We're glad to have you with us, whether you're right here within the walls of our beautiful sanctuary or joining us from afar with the miracle of modern live stream technology. Whether you're one of our longtime members or have been here a short time, or if you're joining us today for the very first time, welcome. At UUCS, we appreciate your unique experiences, backgrounds, beliefs, and lifestyle. So welcome to everyone. If you are new here, one Sunday each month, we invite a guest speaker to join us in our pulpit. And today we are pleased, I'm especially pleased because I get to hear this talk twice today. I'm very excited to welcome Tessa Delbridge. Tessa is a seasoned communications professional currently serving as the Director of Presidential Communications at Eastern Washington University. In this role, she serves as the lead speechwriter and communications advisor to President Shari McMahan, helping to shape the university's most visible messages. She spent nearly a decade as a high school English teacher before transitioning into public service, where she served as a writer for 2 mayors of the City of Spokane. Over the years, she has ghostwritten hundreds of speeches, written thousands of letters to Spokane citizens, and played a behind-the-scenes role in shaping civic and institutional narratives across our region. She's going to share much more about that, and it is fascinating. Today, she brings her experience and perspective to help us explore the ways communication rooted in clarity, empathy, and purpose can shape trust and connection. So please join me in welcoming Tessa Delbridge to our pulpit today. Okay, we have just one announcement today, and that is that Todd Milne and Jackie Sandberg with percussionist Aaron Mark are going to be playing music at the Emerson Garfield Farmers Market at Emerson Park on Friday, August 29th from 3 to 7. So in case you want to put that on your calendars, Friday, August 29th from 3 to 7 at Emerson Park. Now, if you will take a few moments to greet one another and be sure to say hello to someone you haven't met yet. Thank you. We'll have more time to greet one another and share our stories during social hour after the service, which as always includes Ellen's great coffee and lots of good conversation. We now turn from our informal greeting of one another to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our unity and solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt where it has been found. Thanks, Tara. Our opening reflection today is from research professor, author, and speaker Brené Brown. As we gather for worship, we're reminded that this work of trust building isn't only for professionals. It's something we each engage in, whether we realize it or not. Every conversation, every promise kept, every moment of listening is a form of public relations for who we are and what we stand for. Brené Brown reminds us that trust isn't built in one grand gesture or flawless statement. It's built in the quiet accumulation of small moments of honesty, vulnerability, and consistency. It's not enough to name our values, we must live them. In our relationships and in our witness to the world, what matters is that our values show up in how we speak, act, and care for others. Brené says, trust is the stacking and layering of small amounts and reciprocal vulnerability over time. Trust and vulnerability grow together, and to betray one is to destroy both. Living into our values means we practice them. We walk our talk.
Okay, let's stand up with us and sing There Is More Love Somewhere.
There is more
We're now going to kindle our candles of care on behalf of those who are most on our hearts and minds, and begin, as we unfortunately have been for quite some time, for the people of Ukraine and Russia, the Palestinian people, the people of Israel, Iran, Syria, and on behalf of the many frightened immigrants in our own country, suffering the loss of loved ones and the uncertainty they face for their own safety as they attempt to simply go about their lives here in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing others who are here and here in our hearts and minds this morning. You are welcome to say their names aloud as you're willing. Those named aloud, and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering elsewhere in our world at this hour, we hold in our community of compassion. This is the third Sunday of the month, and we like to take up a special collection each month for an organization that we have an affinity with in our community. Today's special collection is on behalf of the Spokane Immigrants' Rights Coalition. Your donations today will go into their Community Justice Fund to provide emergency aid to immigrants right here, right now in Spokane. Parents taken away need funds to make phone calls to their families. Children need assistance for food. Our neighbors and clients need funds for legal defense against deportation when they are detained. You can help the Spokane Immigrants' Rights Coalition defend our communities by giving to their Community Justice Fund today. If you're here in the sanctuary, I don't believe there are envelopes in your orders, or there are now? Oh, good job. Way to go. Way to go, second service. There weren't in the first service. So you can just tuck your donation right into that envelope and put that into the basket that's going to pass. And if you're joining us via live stream today, you can go to our website and make your donation right there, or at any time, you can mail a check to the church. Be sure to note in any memo section that your contribution is for this special collection. Thank you for your generosity, and we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
Crazy Willie was crying out, the light is blinding my eyes. He's calling out to Charlie, come see someone that you just won't recognize. Willie's pointing up the canyon road to where the gravestones lay. The words were hard coming out of his mouth, but I knew what he was trying to say. Charlie said he'd heard about that circuit preacher going round, healing the blind and raising people up from their plots underneath the ground. And Crazy Willie said, hey Charlie, did you know Lazarus went down? He said the preacher's gone on up by his gravestone, he's drawing quite a crowd. Then Charlie took off up the canyon road His crazy heart was beating fast. And Willie took off right behind, yelling out, I don't wanna be last. Then Willie looked on kinda skeptical to see the glory of his words. And Charlie was moved more than he could say, 'cause he knew he'd seen the Lord. The Son of Man lifted his eyes. He saw right through the skies. And he called out, Lazarus, come forth and know that God is alive. And know that God is alive.
Thank you, Bob. So many wonderful guests today, right? All right. It is Reading Across the Lifespan Day for our Time for All Ages. So I'd like to invite any children forward if you want to come forward, or you can stay right where you are. It's okay. I'll speak loud. You can hear me. But before I share my story today, I wanted to ask any of you, did anyone do any traveling this summer? Where did you go? Oregon? Turkey? Sheesh, Turkey. Anybody? California. Oregon. 2 people went to Oregon. Did you go together? Idaho. Where's that? Jeez. Well, great. Sounds amazing. I want to hear all the stories about all the places you've been. And I would like to share a little bit about where I traveled this summer. I didn't pack a suitcase. I didn't have to stand in any single airport security line. I didn't even have to fill up my car with gas or wear a seatbelt. I just opened a book. Actually, a lot of books, because it's summer, which is the perfect season to do some traveling. So I'd like to share a little bit about where I went and who I met. This summer, I visited a small coastal town in Maine where I met a woman named Olive Kitteridge. She's a little grumpy, sometimes kind, and always a little bit surprising. I walked along the rocky shoreline with her and sat in her kitchen while she brewed tea and told stories about her neighbors. Sometimes I felt a little sorry for her as she shared some of her problems and worries with me, but some of her problems are also some of my problems, and that's always great to find a friend to share problems with. We laughed a lot, and it turns out that I'm going back to visit her with Olive Again by Elizabeth Strout, maybe sometime this winter. After Maine, I flew off, yes, actually flew, to the Basquiat War College, a dangerous, dragon-filled ground where only the strongest and the smartest survive. That's where I met Violet Soaringale, the main character of Fourth Wing. That trip was intense. Fire-breathing dragons, sky battles, secrets, friends and enemies, and a little bit difficult sometimes to tell them apart. I was pretty glad to arrive home from that adventure. But I wasn't finished. I stepped back in time to the court of Henry VIII, man, is that guy a piece of work, where I met Mary Boleyn, sister to Queen Anne, in The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregory. The castles were cold, The dresses were heavy and the danger was real, and I had to be very careful about what I said and who I trusted. After that adventure, I needed something very relaxing, so I tagged along with a couple on a gorgeous vacation to Bora Bora. Crystal waters, white sandy beaches, except in Something in the Water by Catherine Stedman, things were not quite as perfect as they seemed, and that trip turned out to be anything but relaxing. Let's just say, if you're going to go scuba diving and you see something mysterious floating in the water, maybe just ignore it. I also spent time with a group of remarkable, friendly, and funny children who lived together in an orphanage in the House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. That's where I met 6-year-old Lucy, short for Lucifer. Yep, the devil himself. And to my surprise, he turned out to be a sweet, mischievous little guy who loved telling jokes and pulling pranks, and who was above all kind. Because that's what happens when children are surrounded by love and hope, even in the most unexpected places. Oh, and I helped fix up a cabin tucked deep in the woods of the Cascade Mountains, hammering, sawing, and sweeping away years of dust in Cabin by Patrick Hutchison. None of us had the faintest idea how to turn a rundown shack into a cozy little hideaway, but somehow we learned, one bent nail and wobbly board at a time. And by the end, I left with splinters in my hands, the smell of fresh cut wood on my clothes, and memories of good food, good friends, and the satisfying ache of a day's work well done. I went a few other places, and I'm pretty sure I can fit in at least 2 more trips before the end of the summer, and then I'll start planning my fall travels. Books are tickets. They are passports. They are time machines. And best of all, they're free if you have a library card. So the next time someone asks you, "Did you go anywhere fun this summer?" Or, "Did you meet anyone interesting?" Or, "Did you work on anything meaningful?" you can say, "Yes, all of those things. I traveled far. I met unforgettable people. I faced dragons, built cabins, uncovered secrets, and even saw how adventures in books can shape adventures in real life. Every place I went, every person I met, every page I turned left a little mark on me. Stories, like travel, have a way of changing us, helping us see with new eyes and opening our hearts and minds to new ideas. And when we carry those new ideas into our real lives, we start to shape a braver, kinder world where everyone belongs, even little Lucifer. Now, will you help sing us out to Play Cloud first? As we move into a time of meditation, you're invited to find a comfortable, receptive position. Close your eyes if you wish. Take a few deeper breaths and reflect on this poem called Living for Yourself by Polly Castor. The rain doesn't fall to nourish itself. A river doesn't drink its own water. Plants don't perceive any of the beauty they exude. Flowers cannot smell the fragrance they release. A fruit tree never eats its own produce. The sun doesn't shine in order to make itself warm or to help itself grow. No food ever tastes its own flavor. All of nature lives to give. Do you?
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonballs fly for their forever banned? The answer, my friend, is a blowing in the wind. The answer is a blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times can a man turn his head, pretending that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is a blowing in the wind. The answer is a blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? And how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? And how many deaths will it take till he knows too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is a blowing in the wind. The answer is a blowing in the wind.
I love that song. My parents I grew up on Bob Dylan, Peter, Paul and Mary, and the Mamas and the Papas, so I love it. So thank you for having me. This is a little different for me because I am constantly in the background. So this is now the second time, only because an hour ago was the first, that I have spoken and put my name to something in like the last 8 years. So. But I do appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about the two things that have shaped my life and my career, which is public relations and speechwriting. So both are about the same idea, that the words we choose and the stories we tell about ourselves and each other can build trust, they can strengthen relationships, and even shape our communities. So just a little bit more about me. I've spent most of my second career ghostwriting behind the scenes, and it's a role I've come to love because I get to help leaders find the right words at the right time. Before this chapter, I was a high school English teacher in a small town near the Tri-Cities, and I genuinely thought I would retire from the classroom. I had wanted to be a teacher since I was in third grade. But life shifted dramatically for me, best laid plans. In 2015, my husband passed away, and he was also a high school English teacher in the same district. So I stayed one more year in teaching, but ultimately realized that the place that I had once felt most at home no longer fit. So that's when I stepped away from the front of the classroom and into the quieter work of shaping language behind the scenes. And really, to my surprise, I found purpose in my cubicle. I discovered I could still teach and make a difference in people's lives, just in a different way, as a voice behind the voice. So going from a teacher to a ghostwriter, I think has given me a unique perspective on the power of language and leadership. From being a teacher, you know that the most effective messages aren't always the loudest or the flashiest, but they're the ones that are rooted in listening, in empathy, and intention. So today I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit on what I do, talk about what it means to write for others, why that work matters, and how the words we choose can either deepen connection or erode trust. So to begin, who is public relations? Public relations professionals are obviously writers, but we are also strategists, we are media navigators, and unfortunately, most often, we are crisis managers. So my specialty is called executive communications, which means I spend my day writing for a single executive under the umbrella of a public relations team. So, but ultimately, all public relations professionals have a passion for storytelling. So that's the who, now it's the what. At its core, public relations, and from here on out, I'm just going to say PR, since that's how it's most often used. PR is the art, but most importantly, the science of building relationships through strategic communication. It involves understanding an audience, crafting messages that will resonate, and managing the reputation of a person or an organization. So I need to be clear, though, that PR is not the same as marketing or advertising. So in advertising or marketing, it's called paid media. And so you're paying to have your story told, whether that's an advertisement or a billboard or a commercial. So you get to decide what gets published. In PR, on the other hand, is what's called earned media. So what we do earns us a story on the front page, and that can be good or bad. We hope it's good. So paid and earned media create an overall strategy in communications, but they are distinctly different. So I don't work in marketing, I work only in earned media, PR. So to understand PR, if you can imagine a big metal bucket. So the bucket represents your reputation. And every positive thing you do, every story or narrative that gets to the public and makes you look good, each one of those is just a drop in the bucket. So over time, your goal is to fill the bucket, create a strong, trustworthy reputation. And we do that in multiple ways with different tactics. So it's very strategic and calculated. One way is, we're all writers, so one way is writing articles, but we publish them on our own website or our own social media because we own that. If we have an interesting angle on a hot topic that's out there right now, we can probably do an op-ed most often, like to a news source, but we'll pitch it to the news source that will most likely run it based on who their audience is, so it depends on the topic. And since PR is earned, we might also consider making a press release, which is pitching a story in the hopes that the news will do it, the news will pick it up. We give them kind of a whole kit with quotes and photos or videos, and we just hope they find it interesting enough to publish. But there's no guarantee in that, so there's no guarantee a message will make it to the public and fill our bucket. So we always have a multi-pronged strategy when it comes to storytelling. And in addition to writing our story, we also put our executives in front of different audiences to deliver speeches of all kinds, and to connect and authentically tell our stories and capitalize on our strengths. It's always risky, though, because if it's off the cuff or there's no notes, you don't know what your executive is going to say often. There's always a PR person in the background, like, stick to the talking points. They never do. So we do the best we can, but sometimes, ultimately, one message is going to get remembered and another gets lost. Could be a big news day. But day in and day out, we work to fill the bucket. But crises inevitably happen. So you've got your big bucket, but someone or something is going to come around and just poke a hole in the bucket. And suddenly you're leaking all this goodwill that you've built up. And the only thing that's going to avoid disaster is how full that bucket was before the hole appeared. So good PR professionals, try as we might, can't always stop the leak from happening. But we can ensure that the bucket doesn't run dry before the hole gets patched. So we want our reputation up here, poke the hole, we can lose some goodwill. But if your reputation is here in the bucket, you're going to run dry really quickly. So Warren Buffett, the billionaire investor, bluntly wrote, "It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it." And that is very, very true, and it's why we never shut off our phones. I have yet to be involved in a crisis that happens between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday. It is always on the weekend or 4 in the morning, and I don't have my work phone with me today. I thought it was important I left it at home, and I'm legitimately nervous. It's like, this is the time it's going to happen. So that's how we build reputation, but I would be remiss if I avoided PR's own reputation, and that is our reputation as spin doctors. So the term spin doctor originated in the 1980s political arena. That's often where it's kept, is in politics. And it refers to someone who takes a negative story and twists it into something deceptively positive. That bending of the truth is manipulating the public, and it raises serious ethical concerns. There's real tension in public relations between advocacy and honesty. Our role is to help people and organizations present themselves in the best light, but it shouldn't ever come at the cost of truth. So sometimes distraction is part of our strategy. We know a bad story is going to come out, so we contextualize it and put out some good news stories on the same side. But it's not the same as twisting. And I've done like 30 versions of this because I'm an editor at heart, not necessarily a speaker. And I keep like, should I say it, should I not? But I have been involved in a spin, and it made me feel like the most icky I've ever been. And it was local, and it was incredibly manipulative, and I stepped away from politics because of it. And I stepped over my own ethical line, and I just couldn't do it again. So I'm in higher ed, which is much nicer. We're good people. So ethical PR prioritizes the full picture, but it shouldn't deceive. Unfortunately, not everyone follows those standards. We are seeing egregious examples today, from partisan spin on legislation to biased government messaging that blurs the fact and the fiction. And it tells you a lot about the person or the people behind the spin. It's very troubling, but it's a very common practice. The only thing it does is erode trust in what you hear and see, and it's unfortunate. In his 1946 publication called Politics and the English Language, George Orwell warned us that political language, and with variations, this is true of all political parties, from conservatives to anarchists, is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind. Words shape our reality. I truly believe the pen is mightier than the sword. And PR people owe it to our audiences to yield them with integrity, to not manipulate purposefully. And that's the belief that I take with me into speechwriting. So when you write a speech, it's not just arranging words artfully. It's entering someone else's voice, their values, and their worldview to tell a story honestly. And when those words are ultimately spoken by the face of an organization or a city or a university, The integrity with which they are crafted matters just as much as the message itself. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, her speechwriter, her chief speechwriter, Ezra Zweli, he described this practice in an interview once, and I was like, that's right. He described it as a visitation. So you're a guest in someone else's mind and voice. It's a privilege, and it's also exhausting and disorienting, and that is very true. It is disorienting to basically spend my entire day as someone else. I went and counted them up, almost 1,000 speeches, tens of thousands of external emails to Spokane citizens. If you write to your mayor or a legislative representative, they are not the ones seeing it. There is someone like me responding and doing the casework. Letters to organizations, government officials at all levels, and a few op-eds written by me, but not me. So after 8 years, this is the first time writing in my own voice for the public, and the first time I get to claim credit for the words. So it's kind of weird. You can Google, there's no story out there, but I'm like, you've probably heard me. I love every minute, though, of writing for other people, but it does become very difficult to turn off. Even in something as simple as social media, I now find it very hard to find my personal voice. So I can write a flawless post for the president in minutes. She can send me a photo. I've got it. It looks really nice. We post it. And then I have my pictures of my personal life. And I will spend legitimately half an hour just wrestling with a caption. And then I always just land on like, had a good time, heart emoji. Like, I'm a writer. I should be better at this. But it's just, I give up myself for what I do. So it is an absolute privilege to be the words behind our community leaders. And a good speechwriter becomes whatever the moment or the principal, the executive, requires. So in other words, a good speechwriter is like a mimic octopus. So stay with me. I learned about this extraordinary sea creature through an Octonauts episode, which is, I just heard someone say yes. So it's a kids show I used to watch with my daughter, and it's one of those where like, yeah, we can watch it. Like, this is great. It's like these little animals that live underwater, and they feature a sea creature every week, and it's just great. So this octopus, this mimic octopus, was only discovered in like the 1990s, and is like others in that it can change its color and shape. But it goes one step further in changing its behavior to imitate other animals. So to date, it's been recorded mimicking over 15 different species. So I have only mimicked 5, mostly 3, there's a 4th, and then a 5th. But this mimic octopus is, for example, okay, here's an example. It's floating along and spots a damselfish, which is highly territorial. So instead of moving away and becoming like a piece of coral or sand, the mimic octopus recognizes the fish, recalls that its natural predator is a sea snake, and then turns itself into a sea snake, adopting the correct color, so like the black, white, and red at the tips, and behaving like it by moving its tentacles to scare away the damselfish. And it does that with 15 different species. It's crazy. So in the same way, a speechwriter mimics our principle and adapts in different situations. So we study our principle's tone, especially with different topics. So when I went from writing for Mayor Nadine Woodward, it was 2 weeks later, and then I was writing for President Shari McMahan. And so it was really quick. I needed to do a lot of research. And so I was just walking around listening to her in meetings and just not taking notes, but just listening to what words she used. And it was the first time that she talked about equity. And she was just in a normal meeting with faculty, and then something happened, and she slammed on the desk and just moved forward, and her voice elevated, and she was talking about student equity gaps, whereas students of color graduating at the same rate as their white peers. And it was like, okay, like she got really snappy about it. And I knew in that moment that that was something that I could put in her speeches at a time when we needed to like up the moment. Or if she wasn't going to use notes, I could put it in and she would be able to ad-lib on it very authentically. So we study different topics and their tone. We study cadence, which I got very spoiled with Nadine. She speaks like a journalist, and it was just so easy. It was a lot harder with Mayor Condon. He, in regular, doesn't talk in full sentences, so it was very hard to write speeches that were authentic and not full sentences. And then we also study their personal and their professional values. So we go back and study what they've done in the past. And we dive a little bit into their personal history, a bit to craft words that will sound authentic. So it requires that you put yourself aside completely, because the goal is not to sound brilliant yourself, to be like Tessa Delbridge, but it's to make the speaker brilliant. So the example that I have is the very first speech that I ever wrote for Mayor Condon. I kind of stumbled into being his speechwriter. He had someone else, and it was a Veterans Day speech, and he didn't like what she had written. So he was like, hey, Tessa, give it a try. And I was like, yes, it's my moment. And so I wrote this speech, and I thought it was beautiful. I still like the message of it. And I tuned in the next day there was a Facebook Live of the event, and I was like, oh my goodness. And he came on from first word, total rewrite. There was absolutely no word that was me. And I was devastated. But what I realized was I had written a speech as me, what I wanted to say. And Mayor Condon is a veteran and comes from veteran family. I don't. And so I wasn't putting myself in his shoes and what he would say as a veteran on Veterans Day. So it was a learning moment for me. And I will say I very much internalized that and got better. And to this day, he still calls me up when he does a Veterans Day speech and asks me to write it. And I'm very honored to do it, especially, knowing what he cares about and what he has experienced in his own life. I do have a good example of a speech that I did. One of my favorites, again with Mayor Condon, was the reopening of the pavilion in Spokane when that reopened. And in David's office, he had a book. It's called The Fair and the Falls. And it's like 600 pages of total history of the World's Fair. And he knew it inside and out. And it's actually written by a professor at Eastern, Dr. Bill Youngs. I was not born in 1974. I was not here for the World Fair. And so in order for me to sound like him with his knowledge, I poured myself into the research. I read most of The Fair and the Falls, the history, its symbolism, its connection to Spokane, its connection to the river, sustainability. And when he gave the speech, it was one of the few that I was there, it landed. You could tell. Yes, I nailed it. It sounded authentic from him because I was writing what he knew, and I was being him in that moment. So there's real power when you have a well-crafted and well-delivered speech. And we all know the greats when it comes to that. I have a dream. We can all say most of it. I always like the ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Okay. And then the one that shook me the most was President Obama, his Yes, We Can speech. And I was rewatching it the other day, and I was like, tears were coming down. I was like, yes, we can. I was like, Zoe, sit here. You got to hear it. She was like, I don't get it. I was like, it's good. So these are words that shape movements in our nation and shift mindsets of generations and get us into get us to vote. These are powerful. At the same time, words can also shake a foundation and set off complete destruction. So our job as speechwriters is to listen deeply, write honestly, and help our leaders rise to the moment. Because in times of need, their words and our words matter. And it's how we use them that matters most. And I will add here that this is why AI is never going to replace good speechwriters. It can simply not capture the emotional depth, the nuances necessary to connect, or the authenticity. These are qualities that are central to trusted, human-centered communication. And I wrote that, and then I put it into ChatGPT, and was like, am I right? And it agreed with me. I was like, yes, all right, never gonna be replaced. So when done well, public relations and speechwriting foster trust in our communities. Strong PR can bridge differences, close distances, and soften disagreements. At its best, PR serves others, inviting people into mutual understanding through storytelling. But when it fails, it can have a lasting impact. There's a plethora of examples of failure. And probably one of the most that we think of is just the awkward responses from corporations to public issues, or apologies that completely miss the mark. I've gone to classes solely on how to write an apology. It's very difficult. But in all of those, the pattern is familiar, and it's a breakdown in listening. It's not always from bad intent, but usually from arrogance, from haste, or disconnection. They're words that are shaped in a vacuum, in a boardroom, in a cubicle. Statements that are so sanitized, they mean nothing. We call them nothing burgers. It wasn't long when I was at Eastern when the admissions, the affirmative action in admissions came down from the Supreme Court, and it didn't make a difference because Washington isn't able to use affirmative action in our admissions, but, this is not hyperbole, it took us 6 hours to write our tweet, to write our response, which is not many words, but it was 6 hours and 4 people and the Attorney General just to get a tweet. It was so ridiculous. So the best PR, though, happens when we truly know our audience. We understand the moment and we choose our words with care. When communication reflects a genuine grasp of the people it's meant to serve. So to wrap up, turning away from the professional to the personal, and I wrote this before I heard the Brene Brown little quote, so it's pretty much the same, but public relations is how we present ourselves to the world, and how that shapes the relationships we build with those around us. So every day we're all practicing public relations. Each of us is telling a story through how we speak, how we listen, how we respond. We don't have a team crafting a polished image, but we do control what we say and how we say it. In our individual lives, we shape our stories through consistency, through compassion, through care. Our words and our stories carry weight, not just because they inform, but because they also reveal. The tone we use, the pauses we take, the ways we engage across disagreement, all of it adds up to become our reputation. We're all filling our personal bucket with drops every day. So in the end, know that the story you earn will always speak louder than the story you tell. Thank you.
It was so fascinating. Thank you for sharing. So everybody can stand and sing Blue Boat Home. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on the
Our benediction today is from the late Howard Thurman. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.